This is Brad Smith. Welcome to the Visionary Leader's Mind podcast, where we explore the idea of what a visionary leader is, how it works, what it feels like, and how to develop that capability further in yourself. My guest today is Ira Bowman.
Hello, Brad. Thanks for having me on your show.
Glad to be here. Glad to have you here. Thank you. So the first question I want to ask you, Ira, is, have you ever had in your mind, what's a visionary, two questions then, what's a visionary leader? And have you ever had an epiphany? And what does that feel like? So we'll take those sequentially. What's a visionary leader?
Yeah, I mean, the visionary leader to me is an interesting question because how is that distinguished from a regular leader? But I think for me, what that means is somebody that's good at kind of seeing into the future and being ahead of the curve and then taking action to prepare for that change that's coming, right? So when you're surfing, the power of the wave is in the front. If you're riding on the top of the wave or the back of the wave, I'm not saying it won't propel you forward. Certainly it will, but it won't propel you forward with as much momentum as riding that front of that wave. So for me, a visionary leader is somebody who can read the tea leaves, if you will, of what's coming, not only for, the immediate future, but the intermediate future, not necessarily out 50 years, but let's say 3 or 4 years, what's coming with technology and what's coming with business, and then take the action to not just for themselves, for their business, for their team, to get them in place. So for me, epiphanies that I've had, yes, I have had epiphanies like that. An example, real just practically, I was in sales for 20 years, and in sales, my role changed over the 20-year period. Sometimes I was an individual producer, sometimes I was a manager, sometimes I was a director. So different responsibilities, but my sales success had been up to 2018 based on cold calling and rapport building face to face. So I was a big Zig Ziglar guy, reading Zig's books and then trying to implement his sales strategies, which I still think are brilliant. Yep. But the thing that changed, I saw it coming, was that the role for most people in business was expanding. In other words, there was less people to do the same amount of roles. So you had to take on more responsibility inside your roles, which meant you weren't going to have as much free time to meet with salespeople, especially those that are selling something you don't even know you need, which was one of the things that I sold. I sold an alternative good. So in 2018, when most people were not using LinkedIn to prospect for business, I started to develop my network and make videos and reach out to prospects in a rapport building way. I'm not talking about direct mail. I'm talking about creating content in posts, videos and graphics and things like that, eye-catching stuff, to try to get into the conscious mind of the people that I wanted to sell to. So that, when I first started to do it, the owner of the company that I worked for called me on the carpet and he said, "Hey, what the heck are you doing? You should be out there pounding the pavement like you always have been." I was known for being a cold call king and setting this example that he would then point to the rest of the team and say, "Look, if you want to be successful, you need to be like Ira. You need to do the things that Ira's doing. So get out there and make these cold calls." Now, all of a sudden, Ira was at home working on videos and graphics and stuff like that and trying to market myself in a different way. And he didn't know how to take it because he didn't have that same vision. So he didn't have that epiphany that I had. That's a long answer, but.
Right. Well, we'll drag you back in. So yeah, in order to be a visionary leader, maybe I'm going to take your thought there of being able to see the future 50 years into the future. I would call that a super visionary leader. If we can get a few of those, I would love that. But
well, I'm not that smart.
Yeah, well, I don't know that I don't think it's got anything to do with smart. It's got to do with accuracy.
Yeah, there you go. I'm not that accurate, right?
Okay.
But I think that I'm pretty good a couple years out.
Yeah. But the core of that is intuition.
Yeah.
And most people don't realize that. And the
Yeah.
tools that we have, the experiences we individually have, is both the slow intuition where it kind of bubbles up and we go, oh, and the epiphany part where it's like lightning strike.
Yeah, light bulbs for sure.
Right. So in your epiphany, into the moment that you had that aha, what did it feel like? Describe that experience.
Actually, it was painful because I was really set in my ways. I had 20 years experience of doing door-to-door sales. And one of the things that I would do.
Now, Ira, I'm going to give you a hard time here. I want you to go into the experience of the epiphany, and then we can talk about the story that came with it.
Okay, so
in the moment.
Yeah, it was frustrating because the part of the epiphany, this coming to the realization that what I had been doing was not going to be successful moving forward. There was a little bit of fear because, okay, so can I do this other thing that's going to be required? And I wasn't sure. So the epiphany was frustrating for a variety of reasons. You and I know each other, so you know this about me. I like my routines, and I'm very much a systems-based thinker, and that's how I live my life. So not having the answers, but seeing clearly that this is what is needed, that was to me like, maybe, when people screech their nails on the chalkboard and how that hurts their ears. That's how the epiphany felt, honestly. Now, there was a little bit of excitement too, because I'm not one to back away from a challenge. I'm totally fine to hit that mountain head on. Like, I'm stubborn, and I like to be creative, as you know, right? So there was a part of me that was excited about it. But yeah, the epiphany, really, it scared me for sure.
Yep. But it happened in a moment. It's like all the stuff, all of a sudden.
Yeah, it was, I didn't know it, and then I did know it. This wasn't like something that had to develop over a year. Like figuring out what to do with the epiphany, that took time. But seeing what I needed to do, and it wasn't just me. This actually, for me, this was like, this is the way all people in my type of sales should be switching. This wasn't an Ira Bowman thing. This was hey, this is a sales thing, especially outdoor sales, an outdoor sales thing for sure.
In industry thing, yeah, right. Yeah. But the point is, you knew in one moment, like you said, 1 minute you didn't, one instant, the next minute you knew, but you knew how it fit, you knew how it worked, you knew what you needed. You didn't, maybe not all the details of the how part.
Yeah.
But the what part was like there instantly.
The what part was clear. And what's funny is, this was 4 years ago now. It hasn't changed. Like that epiphany, what I understood in that moment, I still understand that exactly the same way today. Because it hasn't, there hasn't been a seismic shift in how you need to sell since, at least that I'm aware of.
So then the aftermath of the epiphany, if you would, right? That's when you get to figure out aftermath. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, that's exactly what it was.
You get to figure out, okay, there's the vision. How am I going to make that happen? What has to happen? What do I build into my routine? How does my routine change, if you would? What are the habits I have to change? What are the reflexes that I have to change? What do I have to say no to now that I've been doing and I'm really comfortable with?
Yeah, including that uncomfortable conversation with my boss, trying to explain to him why what I've always done in the past to be successful will no longer be successful anymore. Well, that was not a comfortable conversation, but to his credit, he did give me some rope and goes, okay, I know you and your work ethic, and I trust you that, you know what you're doing. So he did allow me the freedom to do what I thought was best.
There we get into the character part. Everyone knows this is a character, right? Whether we're a character or not, right? But they know us, and as a result of that, we've proven we're reliable.
Yeah. Well, he had hired me 2 different times, so he obviously liked me.
It's like remarrying your ex-wife, right?
Right. Yeah, I've worked for several companies in my career multiple times because, at different stages in your life, you think the grass is greener over here, and so we've moved around. But then life changes happen, and hey, let's go back, what's available to us. And that's one of those things where they know what they're getting and I know what I'm getting, so let's try this again and see if, at this stage it works out better, that kind of thing.
Good. So a visionary leader has epiphanies. A visionary leader then deals with the aftermath, right?
Yeah, because if you could be a visionary without being a leader, right? You could see, like, I could have had the epiphany and then not done anything about it because it was uncomfortable, I was scared or whatever. But to be a visionary leader, you have to do both. You have to be able to see and respond.
You have to have courage.
You do have to have courage. I don't think it's possible to be a visionary leader without courage, because you're not following the crowd. You're the arrow, right? You're the one being shot out into the forefront and saying, hey, follow me. And if nobody follows you, you're not a leader either.
That's true.
Sorry.
That's true.
But yeah, there's people who are in management that aren't leaders. They're owners of companies who aren't leaders. Nobody's following them.
There's no inspiration going on.
Yeah.
So epiphany, intuition, aftermath, getting people to, so communication, courage, right?
Communication. I think every good relationship has a component of healthy communication. If it's not healthy or good communication, then then actually that's a challenge that you have to overcome. But whether you're talking about marriage or you're talking about management, leadership, even peers, friends, you have to have some type. It doesn't have to be oral, it could be written, but you do have to have some type of communication there.
I think one of the big things in what you're talking about in communication is rapport.
Yeah.
And one of the things that happens in rapport, there's the verbal part, there's the communication part, like the written part, there's the non-verbal part, that's the body language stuff, right?
Yeah.
But there's a rapport that happens with people that work well together that is important in being a leader.
100%.
So rapport is part of it.
In fact,
So
I think that even starts in the hiring process. If people are being smart when they're considering a new hire, they should be considering who they already have on staff, especially who's going to work directly with that person, and consider how they will interact with each other. Because if you have a peacock already, you might not want another peacock, because the odds are they're probably going to go at it and compete for attention. So if you have, a team of introverts, adding an extrovert might be just what you need, to spice it up. And vice versa, if you have, 3 extroverts and you're adding a 4th, maybe you look for an introvert just to give yourself a little depth and dimension. And what I was always looking for as a manager was not someone who was exactly the same as what I already had. I wanted depth and variety. That was my particular style. There might be some industries where they go, you know what, this role, we need a type whatever. And so that's all we're looking for, is a stable full of those things. So I think people should consider the personality and how it will gel, not only with the role itself, but with the team.
Good idea. I like that a lot. What other visionary, so if you were going to describe a visionary leader in today's world, other than yourself, who would you describe that as?
So you're talking about like the traits or the personalities that make one?
No, name names.
Name a person?
Name a person. I mean, to me, the visionary leaders who founded this country, George Washington, Madison, Hamilton,
Sure,
right, Jefferson, those were the visionary leaders. To me, those are visionary leaders, because 200 years later, we're still working with the vision.
It's still an amazing, well, like I said, Zig Ziglar, I already referenced in, before. What I liked about Zig's work, and it still stands, his the lessons that he teaches in his books, and I own every Zig Ziglar book there is. I'm definitely a Zig apprentice. What I liked about it was there was always a human element to his approach. It wasn't just sales. It wasn't stoic advice. It wasn't just clinical advice. There was a human component to it. So he would explain it and draw upon the emotional intelligence, not just the, the brain power or the person's
Human.
desire to sell. So for me, one of the visionary leaders that I've worked for, which I mean most people aren't going to know his name, but his name was Pat Gremion, and Pat Gremion lives in Houston, Texas, and he was the vice president of sales for a company that I worked for out there in Texas. And he had an interesting challenge because one of the ways the company was growing was through acquisition. And so with the acquisitions, some of these companies were previously rivals and now we're on the same team. And some of these things, it's look, even toxic. And I've used that word to describe this company before, not Pat, but the company. They had some toxic work environments because of the way they were growing. It wasn't that the company is teaching people to be, adversarial, but you're
Right.
taking rivals and now you're on the same team. And there is definitely some mistrust and dislike. Have you ever, if anybody out there has watched this, The Last Dance, it's the story of the 1998 Bulls, right? They're talking about the Pistons and the Bulls in episode 4, which is all I've gotten to so far. But anyways, it's neither here nor there for most of you. But for those of you who've seen it, you'll understand this. Back in that late 80s and early 90s with the bad boy Pistons and the up and coming Bulls, they really hated each other. Hated. Well, you had a major player in Dennis Rodman who switched teams. Now, he didn't go straight from Detroit to Chicago. He went from Detroit to San Antonio to Chicago. So that helped. But like here's guys that have had their noses broken by this dude just 2 years ago. Now he's on your team. But they were all in with him. And the leader of that team, the visionary leader, is Phil Jackson. I want to talk about visionary leader. There's a guy. And he didn't create the triangle offense that they were so famous for, but that triangle offense got the Bulls from being a good team with the league's best player to being an elite team, even though the league's best player now had to sacrifice. But he got Michael Jordan to buy into that. And part of what made Phil Jackson so brilliant was the fact that he could take the enemy and bring in the enemy and get the major players. So you had Jordan, Pippen, and Horace Grant, and they all bought in to Dennis Rodman. That changed everything for them, right? That's why they won. I mean, look, if you take Dennis Rodman off the second run that the Bulls made, I don't know that they would have made the second run because he did things that the other players on that team were not able to do. He was the rebounder, the defender, the enforcer, the things that, Jordan and Pippen, I mean, they were good at defense and they were great at shooting, but they weren't that guy. They weren't in the paint grabbing the boards. And he didn't have the ego that he had to score 20 points a night like, some of them do. So anyways, I give Phil Jackson a lot of respect for implementing the triangle offense, but also getting the players, which look, if you just look at the stat sheets for the Bulls and you go, they shouldn't dominate this league. But they dominated for two reasons, because the system was smart. It was visionary. And the leadership of Phil Jackson was the fact to the extent that he could deal with a perfectionist like Michael Jordan and the most extreme aloof player maybe to ever don superstar crown in Dennis Rodman. Those guys were the opposite ends of the superstar spectrum mentally. And he got them both to gel harmoniously. Again, that's visionary leadership to me.
Rapport building.
He did it 100%.
That's
And what's
amazing.
funny, I talk about rapport building all the time in social media as a strategy. I love rapport building. And I think a visionary leader, again, leader, what does leader mean? Part of it is working with the team to get the most, to maximize their success, whatever resources you have available to you. And the bar, obviously, the benchmarks that you're trying to accomplish vary depending on what you're in and who you are and all those things, of course. But a visionary leader who's not getting the most out of their team is probably not, again, a good leader. They might have some admirable traits and they might be good at parts of their job, but to be a visionary leader, a high level of success is got to be in there somewhere for the criterion.
Yep. Well, we have to have measurements for the results, right?
Yeah.
We have
Right.
to measure,
Right.
everybody sits back and looks at, okay, how much money do they have? But that's not the measurement, really.
Yeah.
The measurement is what's the meaning they create, and then the money is a result of the meaning.
Well, and sometimes people get lucky. So repeatability is another thing that I look at, right? It's like, okay, well, you won the lottery and now you have $100 million. Great, but that isn't because you were talented. That's just because it was your lucky day. That was lightning striking in a bottle, right? So can you do it over again? Can the process be repeated?
Take the 100 million and add a zero to it. There's the goal.
Yeah.
Good.
Well, I mean, whatever the goal is, some people's goals are not monetary at all. And I'm not saying that money is the end all be all, but for most of us, our goals, money is helpful to accomplish them, right? So
it's a good tool.
Yeah, it's a good tool, right? And this is the thing that people misquote the Bible all the time. They say, the Bible says that money is the root of all evil. No, that's not what it says. It says the love of money is the root of all evil. The Bible, nowhere in the Bible does it say you don't need money or you shouldn't. In fact, the Bible teaches clearly if you don't work, you shouldn't eat. So now again, it's not talking about people who are incapable, physically incapable. But
well, right, yeah, but that's not a good diet, though. I don't like that diet.
The diet of eating money?
No, the diet of not eating.
Oh yeah.
Like
well,
ever.
I mean, I probably could go skip a few meals. Just
Right. There we go. Yeah,
as long as I'm drinking water.
Right.
Lots
Well,
of
water hydration is good too.
Yeah, we were talking about that before the show started, but
Yep. Ira, tell us about what you do. Now that we're going to wander into this section.
Yeah.
Tell us about what you do and how we can get a hold of you.
Yeah, so I run Bowman Digital Media because I'm really that creative. My company name is my last name, Digital Media. But what we really do, we offer 6 services, but they're all designed to do one thing, and it's to help our clients increase visibility online. So we help people increase their visibility on social media and their visibility in the search engines, because that's become the super highway, if you will, of the world. So that's where people hang out by the billions. So in the old days, back when I started my career, if you wanted to be discovered in business, you would either plant your business on a busy road or by the highway,
Yep.
or you would rent a lot of space in like the yellow pages and billboards, and you would increase your visibility by being next to major thoroughfares. And you can still do that today, but you can get many, many, many more, in fact, by the billions of eyeballs by doing it online. So we're trying to help people, all different types of service companies. They could be an accountant, they could be a coach, they could be an architect, they could be a lawyer. They're usually service-based businesses that hire us. They don't excel in marketing. They really don't understand social media usually, or SEO. And it's like, okay, just hire us and we'll take care of those things for you. We'll create the graphics, we'll design your website, we'll maintain your website, we'll build you backlinks, we'll write blogs for you, we'll create videos, whatever you need. But all of it is just designed to increase visibility so that they can build that rapport with their prospects and earn people's trust so that they can get business. That's what we're trying to do.
Trust. That's a key piece.
Thank you. It's all about trust. So visibility for visibility's sake, you could be a fool and have lots of visibility, but that doesn't help you get business. You have to increase visibility and establish trust, and frankly, likability, because that helps too. So if you can get someone to know who you are, like you, and trust you, the odds are they're either going to do business with you or refer business to you. And either way, you win.
I like that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ira. We're going to put links down in the description and we'll wander off.
Perfect.
I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You bet. Thank you for watching. And thank you, Ira, for being here. Thank you for being on the Visionary Leader's Mind podcast. And for my listeners, remember to keep pursuing your dreams and learning so that you can guide this world with your insights, epiphanies, and hidden brilliance, because we need your visionary leader's mind. Thank you.